Welcome to Tea Time with Amy and Bev. Today I'm flying solo, and so I'm your girl today. Uh, with that, I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday for Thanksgiving. It is December 2nd, 2020, that I'm recording this. We usually record on Wednesdays and then make the videos available on Thursdays. So we're coming into the end of the year. Wow, and what a year it's been. So, in the comments, maybe you could share with us something maybe something that has helped in your growth and expansion this year, and something that maybe a tool or technique that you've used to get through. And I'm referring more towards like meditation, grounding, maintaining your energy, things of that nature. In a time like this, it's so easy to turn to addictive behaviors, and I'm pertaining to alcohol, whether it's prescription drugs, recreational drugs, overeating, because we can be emotional eaters. I would say shopping, that would be one of my things, but shopping, and maybe you have, maybe you haven't. But addiction's something that's easy to lean on for us. I know in my history, part of my story was to cover up my pain, my anger, my resentment, the shame, the guilt. I look forward to that 5 o'clock, because going to the bar and drinking, even just getting home to have a drink, and typically that would include probably either tequila, rum, and or beer. And so the reason for that for me was because it was easier to put the Band-Aid over those emotions that were keeping me stressed out. So if I was intoxicated, then I had a good time. I would relax. I would ease up, have fun conversations. But other than that, when I was sober, that was really difficult to stop those negative emotions from coming up and consuming me. And I tell you, they consumed me a great deal every single day. From the moment I hit the alarm, turn the alarm off, or hit the snooze 2, 3, 4 times, it was an all-day thing in my head, all day. And so in my journey, what helped me was, first, there were 2 books that helped me, and it was Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life, and Wayne Dyer's Your Erroneous Zones. And I think I mentioned those books last week, but those 2 books really had an impact on me. Louise Hay's, for one, she gives you the tools and techniques to move those emotions of shame and guilt, fear, criticism, judgment, anger, resentment, in each chapter there's an exercise that will help you move that. I resonate with Wayne Dyer because of him going through being abandoned by his father. Now, him and his 2 brothers were children, so they were already in a physical body and being kids, whereas my biological father left when they found out my mom was pregnant. So just the abandonment issues, and learning how to navigate that as an adult, because I was still hanging on to a lot of anger with that. So those 2 people absolutely had a huge impact on my life in my healing journey. And I am so for sure thankful and grateful that they were teaching what they were teaching at that time so that that information was available to me. I My first book though that I picked up was actually a book by Sylvia Browne, Life on the Other Side, that just opened my world. Like there was a world I kind of knew existed, but I didn't know enough about it to really understand it. As a child, I had some experiences that kind of got my attention, that things were happening and I was the only one in the room. And of course, at that time, was back in the late 70s, early 80s, that, it's just your imagination, go back to bed, these types of things. I also had a stepfather at that time that I didn't really trust. And so I didn't know if he was messing with me, in a weird way, not like physically, but doing things in my room. So I didn't know. And but then one incident occurred that really made me a little nervous. And so I know that there was something else besides our physical body. And so somebody, I don't even remember who told me to read the book or gave me the book to read, but they gave me Sylvia Browne's book, and I read it. And it was talking about spirit and having multiple lives, and my mind was blown. And it was super exciting to know that I wasn't crazy, because that was one of the things, right? When things happen and you're the only one in the room or the only one in the house and things are happening, you're like, oh my God, I'm losing it. I am losing it. Something is happening. So to know that that was a false belief, I was super relieved. But it opened me up to, I became very interested in spirit, for one, knowing that we're spirit and body, that this body is a vehicle for us to be on this earth. And we need this physical body to experience the human life. We experience the emotions and experience having choices. And then also it opened me up to past lives. And so if we are spirit and body, and when we're done with this body, we drop the body, we turn back into energy, then what happens with that energy? Do we stay in spirit or as an energetic being without a physical body, like for eternity, forever? What, all these questions that were unsettled in me in my childhood and into my adulthood. I have visited several different churches, different denominations. Never really resonated with it, didn't feel comfortable with it. I wasn't actually raised to be religious in any form. I may be one person in your life that has never fully read the Bible. I've read bits and pieces. I've heard things that have been talked about in church. But there was something else in me that needed, there were answers I needed that I wasn't getting in those facilities or that book. And so, or I just wasn't resonating with it. And I'm not saying that the Bible doesn't have the answers or guidance. It's a beautiful book. I mean, I have many, many books, and they all have wonderful messages and wonderful guidance. So choose what works for you. I'm not negating the Bible, so I just want you to know that. It really got me thinking about coming back into physical body multiple times. And it made sense to me because of the life that I had already had or was living in my childhood, in my teens, early in my 20s. Like there were things that had happened along my journey that was interesting. And I knew that there was something more. It's just a knowing. You may have had that too. There's just a knowing that there's something else available to us, or there's some other information that hasn't presented itself yet, and you're just seeking those answers. But in like junior high, high school, super into Egyptian life, like super interested in it. I did a book report on it. I was, anything that came on that was about Egyptian life, I was just in it. And it was, I mean, like, why would I be interested in knowing about the Egyptian life? And then at another point, I wasn't a big reader in high school. It just was not my thing. It was not my jam. The books that we had to read in school, not interested, was not interesting to me, boring. When you're bored with something, it's like you can't even comprehend what you're reading. Have you ever read a book and like you read a sentence or a paragraph and you're like, I have no idea what I just read? That was me in high school. I passed with honors in school, graduated with honors. To this day, I'm not sure how I did that, but I managed to do it. When it was in my early 20s that I was super interested, like, I don't know if you remember Agatha Christie. Agatha Christie was a writer, a murder mystery writer. And I was consumed with these books. And that's when I actually really started reading, was with the Agatha Christie books. I had almost all of her books and her autobiography. I've since released those, not a part of my collection here. But later in my mid-30s, I came across a lady who did a reading for me, and she said, well, in a past life, now mind you, I'm just learning about this stuff, so I was super interested in it, really got me excited. And she said, well, in a past life, you were you had an Egyptian life, you were male, and in that lifetime, you murdered your wife. And I was like, oh. And she proceeded to tell me that in this lifetime, that I have come back together with the person who I murdered. And so this time I was the wife and the other person was the husband. So we flipped genders, but we came back into this life to move through it without killing each other, basically. And it had pertained to the Egyptian life. After that, I was not interested in the murder mystery books anymore. I still am interested in the Egyptians and their way of being and learning about them. I love the Egyptian shows that they have, but not like I was. And it was interesting because I've had that happen with a couple other things, that once it became an awareness in me, like, this happened in a previous life and you're just here to clean that up, then it's done. And it's not an issue anymore. I had my son come near me one day, and we were passing in the hallway of our house, and he just stopped and he got this really interesting look on his face, but he wasn't looking at me, he was looking over my shoulder. And he goes, and it was just like, not even 5 seconds. It was so fast. He goes, oh my gosh, Mom, I saw 3 of your past lives. Really? Well, what did you see? And one was that I was like in a Asian type body and of higher royalty type of thing, like princess or something like that. And I had a lot of slaves, and I wasn't very nice. I mean, this is information he got like that fast. And so I was neglectful as far as money goes. And that was the biggest thing was well, one, having slaves and treating them the way I treated them, but the money, having money and neglecting that responsibility. That so that was one. And interesting enough, in this life, and it's in my numerology and it's in my astrology reports, that I have had during this lifetime issues with money. I've had money come to me, and I've been very abundant, but it's been one of those things like I can't keep it. Like I got to get rid of it. Because the money to me, after having some thought about it and working through it, meditating on it, is that the money is going to define that I'm a bad person. And so I had to shift that belief. And then there was another one, a second one that he saw was I was the like a platoon leader in a service in the military, and we went into like a war zone, or like, kind of like a trap type thing, and my whole platoon died except me, and that caused issues with my self-confidence, that I made the wrong decision and I led them into this trap type of thing. So guess what I've had issues with in this life? Self-confidence. And believe it or not, in most of my life in this lifetime I've been an introvert, and it took me a lot to move from being an introvert into, because I wanted to teach about this type of stuff and spirituality and healing and that. So in order for me to step into that role, I had a lot of work to do to go from introvert to more of an extrovert, to being comfortable with having conversations with people and navigating them and guiding them in their own healing process. So I've had a lot of work to do this lifetime. And the third one, I don't even remember. And I keep forgetting to ask him. I had the intention this past week over Thanksgiving. He came and visited, and I was going to have a conversation with him, but for whatever reason, it escaped my mind, and I never asked him. So recognizing that, sure, my self-confidence issues, being an introvert, could definitely be about being abandoned, about being born into. My mom married an emotional and a mental abusive man who was a Vietnam vet, and so he had an abusive childhood. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. So I was born into that, and then a second mentally and emotionally abusive stepfather, and then being molested. So not by the stepfathers, by someone else. And so all of that's going to, for sure, have an impact on being an introvert and no self-confidence, a lack of self-esteem, and create problems in all those areas. And I totally get that. But the other things that came along with it, the experience I had when I was a child, I know it was some kind of spirit type of visitation. But of course, I was scared to death, didn't know what was happening. Nobody could explain it to me. And then the whole Egyptian thing, and being super consumed about murder mysteries, and just I knew there was something more. I just knew there was something more. And then I got that book by Sylvia Browne. So then it opened up a whole another world to me. And along the journey, I did a lot of healing within myself for this lifetime. And again, just making an awareness, an observation that some of the other things that has happened were carried over from previous lives. And it was just being able to acknowledge it and know, oh, okay, well, that's where that comes from. And I can let that go now, because that's not who I am today. So money isn't going to define who I am today. Money is a tool, money is energy, and I get to define who I am today. I get to define when I have a lot of money, what am I going to do with that money? How can I use it for good? How can I impact people? So I need money to pay for, the camera, the laptop, the subscriptions to Zoom, and these other platforms that or apps that I'm using to be a teacher. And so we need money. We need money for for clothes and books, um, but it doesn't define me. I get to do that. So keep that in mind. If you are struggling with money in a way of you're not understanding why you can't keep it or why you can't bring it to you, then maybe there's just some cleanup to do from a previous life that is carried over. Some people might believe in past lives. I mean, I know a lot of people who believe in past lives, and some people may not, and that's okay. I'm not asking you to change your belief systems for me. So, but I just know that in my mind, in my heart, in my body, all of this made sense to me. And maybe it was just a tool for me to be able to release some of that stuff. Our tools, our techniques, our skills come in different forms. So it's going to help us. And in a healthy way. We want a healthy way to navigate our healing process. So just be aware of that. So a lot of people haven't been given the tools or techniques, the skills to deal with anger. And so, you get triggered and your anger, your temperament goes up. Maybe you are abusive. Maybe you yell and scream. Maybe you hit a wall, punch a wall. Excuse me. And so we want to have healthy ways to handle those emotions that are bottled up inside. So in that journey, the whole past life thing came up, which was super exciting. And then that, of course, that led into hypnosis. So hypnosis is how you get into, maybe observing or experiencing a past life. So opening up that whole world about the subconscious mind and the conscious mind and the ego, and just, wow, it was so exciting to me that we have a whole bunch of information stored in our subconscious mind that is like on autopilot. And so we have hypnosis to help us relax enough into a state to access those subconscious, I call them folders or files, to help us switch that. And that's why people, have great success with weight loss and smoking and other addictions. But I love it and am very interested in it as far as accessing past lives. I've done past life regressions with people. They've had great results in recognizing. I had one lady who she never in this lifetime never wanted kids, and she didn't understand why. It was just one of those things. I don't understand, why do I want to have kids? Why am I not interested in having kids? And we did a regression, and she found out that in a past life that she was raped by her father and ended up pregnant. And so we were able to do some healing around that. And again, I'm not saying that this is the do-all be-all for you, but I do know, and I have witnessed and reading the books of like Brian Weiss and Michael Newton, Sylvia Brown, that there's been great success in that. So whether it's true or not, you know what? If it works in a healthy way, I'm there. I'll give it a go. And then So where I'm going with this is, I know we're during the holidays, and the holidays bring up quite a bit of emotion if you've had somebody transition from the physical body back into spirit. That we're energy. Our spirit is energy, and this physical body is just a vehicle. Again, like I started with, the physical body is just a vehicle for our spirit to be in it to have a human experience. And we want to recognize that our life here on this planet is so temporary, and a part of the human life is we don't know when that's going to end, and that most times I don't know that anybody has gotten a notice like, okay, on this day at this time, this is when you're going to go. That we don't know. We just don't know. And of course, when it does happen, for most, it's a shock. So during the time of the holidays, I like to have a conversation about spirit, because there are ways to connect. And when you're in a space, I know this year has been quite the experience. The entire year has been quite the experience on a global basis. And people have had friends and family who have gone into the hospital, have transitioned from physical body back to spirit, not being able to be there with them during that time because of the pandemic, and the hospitals trying to keep everybody safe and reduce the spread of the virus. And so it's been a really, really, really rough year of people choosing. I say choosing, so if that strikes a nerve with you, just bear with me. But people choosing to leave their physical body. And I say choosing because in my, what works for me is that we choose to come here to inhabit a physical body, and we also choose to leave. And we don't know, like they call it a spiritual contract, that spiritual contract does say, like, and here actually Sylvia Brown talks like you have 7 exit points. So like you have 7 different times in your life that could be an exit point. And it may be like a fleeting moment that you made the choice, instead of getting in your car and going turning right like you usually do, that you turned left, so you avoided an accident, or you avoided being somewhere where you could have been maybe shot, or get in an accident and transition. Could be something like that, and you may never know. That's the interesting part, is you may not ever know what those exit points are. Just something in you has said, you know what, we're going to turn left today instead of right. Okay, let's just go a different route to work today. Okay. Or maybe you were like, well, I need to go to the bank, and you get ready to go to the bank, and then you get a phone call that says, hey, I need you to go over here, where you're distracted from going to the bank, and find out later that maybe there was a bank robbery or something, and people were killed or something like that. I'm using examples that you could relate to, that these are possibilities. Like we have, then this is what she talks about, Sylvia Brown, is that you have 7 exit points. I know of, for sure, of one that I had, and it was after I had a reading, and I actually I've had 2. I remember 2, and they both involve a vehicle. When I was traveling, and it was a 2-lane road, 2-lane highway. So 2-lane highway, no turn lane. And we were going into this really super tiny little town. And I had my blinker on. There was other cars behind me who were slowing down. But as I was slowing down and just making the turn, I was just beginning to turn this, I think it was like a Camaro, young kid, just graduated high school, getting ready to go to college. He decided we were going too slow and he wanted to get past all of us. And just as I was turning, he clipped my bumper. Had it been any other, just like one more second, he would have T-boned me. So that would be one. And then the other one was I had a, this one really got my attention. I had a card reading, a tarot card reading, but it was with Indian type, Native American type cards from a lady who has Native American blood in her, and she really resonated with that type of being. And so she did a reading for me, and she just looked at me and she goes, something's going to happen, and it's going to involve a vehicle where you will, you're going to get hit, and you have to make the decision to either stay in spirit. Basically, you have the decision, you're going to have to make the decision to die or come back, and you have to come back. And the mindset I had at that time was, you know what, I'd be okay if I died, because I was not good in my head or in my heart. Like, I was very emotionally heavy, that I was like, oh, I got to come back. I have work to do. I have stuff. What are you talking about? And this was before I really got into deciding to be a teacher. I had a lot of healing to do before I decided to be a teacher or a coach. But she's like, yeah, you're going to be involved in a vehicle accident and you have to come back. You can't die. You have to come back. Wow. Okay. So about 2 or 3 years later, she said it was going to be within the next 5 years from that time that we had that reading. In the next 5 years, this is going to happen, but you have to come back. And I was like, okay. Wasn't really excited about that, but okay. So 2, 3 years later, my son and I were in the car. He was very young. He was sitting in the back seat. It was before we had to have car seats for our little ones. So he was sitting in the back seat in the center, and I was at the front of a turn lane. So lights red, I'm sitting there, and he really liked gum as a child. He loved gum. So I always had to have gum on me, you know, in my purse or something. So we're sitting there and he says, Mom, can I have a piece of gum? Sure. So I reach in my purse and I have to turn to hand it to him. And just as I turned back, the light was green and a car came speeding through. Wow. Because had I been watching the light like normal and it turned green, I would have been right in the middle of that. So nothing since that incident, there's been no other experience that I'm fully aware of that I would have been in the middle of where I had to make the decision to either die or come back. So I felt strongly in my heart when that happened, I knew that was the point. I knew that that was the incident where this would have been my choice. So that has stuck with me, obviously, for many, many years. This was in my early 30s, I believe. He was very young. So knowing that there's information available to us that that this lady would be able to tell me this, that this other lady was able to tell me about, you know, you had Like she didn't know this lady had told me about my Egyptian life and murdering my spouse and all that. Like they didn't know. This lady didn't know I had an interest in Egyptian life. She didn't know that I read murder mystery books. This other lady, she kind of knew me, the one that did the tarot reading, but how does she know that this accident, this vehicle accident would happen or could happen? Um, and and then other things that have happened in my life. How is it that like the women in our family, so my grandmother, my aunts, I have two aunts, and then my mom's the oldest of three or of six kids, but only the women and myself, so I'm the oldest granddaughter, like we have this connection. And we think of each other, and bam, we're receiving the phone call. Hey, oh my gosh, I'm surprised you called me. I was just thinking about you. Or we think of one of them and we call them and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you called. I'm having this problem, right? It's a note, like this telepathic energy message that's available to us because we are energy. We're spirit and body, and we are energy. And finishing other people's sentences. Like you just know what they're going to say. My husband, he thinks about something and then right, like within seconds, I'm just like, hey, you want to have pizza for dinner? And he goes like, oh, get out of my head. I was just thinking that. I mean, how is that possible? How is that possible? And there's probably some scientific explanation, and that's all cool. And if that's the route that works for you, fabulous, go for it. But to me, what works for me is that everything is energy. And if we're spirit and body and we are energetic beings, we never die, ever, ever. We transition from a physical form. And let me just do a side note. We know that this is not a physical form. Like this is not solid. It's already been proven. So I don't need to go into scientific stuff. I don't speak that language, but I can just tell you that when they go into the smallest particles of our body, it is just space. There's nothing solid about us. Everything we see is just the molecular part of what we see, of the material. Some is denser than others. And so if we are energetic, this is nothing solid about us or anything else around us, then our spirit energy cannot be destroyed. It just changes form. So when we drop the physical body, we go back into spirit. We go back into our true essence. And in my experience, and for what works for me, I can only speak from my viewpoint and my belief system, and what feels good into my heart is that we return back to source. And source could equate to God, universe, the divine, higher self, whatever that might be for you. I will interchange those words. To me, they all mean the same. That our spirit just returns back to source. And source is love, unconditional love, pure love, and joy. I like to add in and joy because I just feel that when we return back into spirit, we are experiencing pure love and joy. And that your family, your friends that have transitioned spiritually, energetically, they are still alive. They are still available for connection. What happens for us in the physical form is that we want that physical contact. We want that hug. We want that the words, right? And that's not an option from another physical being because they've transitioned. But when you can be in your present moment and you think about them think about them in the space of, if you've ever seen them happy or joyful, or you know, you've been with them and you just had the best conversation and you laughed and it was amazing time. Hold that vision of them, hold that memory of them, and that is what will create the more, that because that elevates your energy from a physical state, that'll elevate your energy to, and vibration, energy vibration, to a point to where you can connect with your friends and family that have transitioned. So think of it that the analogy, let's say your relative moved to I was going to say to China, okay, to Asia, and they learn that language, and now that's the only language they speak. So for you two to communicate, maybe you need to learn how to speak their language now. Okay, that's the same thing with connecting with your spiritual family and friends, is that to learn to communicate with them, it's through the heart, it's through the memories, it's through happy memories, please, joyful memories, please. Let's be clear about that. When you think of them, they're there, like they're with you, and you know, you say, you hear it over and over and over. They never leave. They're always with you, and you can physically actually feel like maybe the room gets or maybe your skin gets warm, or you feel a cool breeze, or maybe you feel like somebody's actually putting their arms around you. Those are moments that you're connecting, and it's important that you keep your vibration up. Now, I know that when somebody transitions, that it is that people go through a grieving process, and I get that. Grieving is necessary for most people. But hear me when I say this, grieving is also a low vibration. And we want to, if you want to receive, have that connection spiritually or energetically, vibrationally with your friends or family of transition, we have to keep our energy up. We have to raise our vibration. And when we transition and we go back into pure love and joy, do you, seeing it from that perspective, do you think that you would want to look down on your loved ones and see them crying and sad and depressed and you know, they just put their life on hold? That's not my vision. When I'm in spirit, I want to look down on my family and know that they're gonna keep going, they're gonna enjoy life, they're gonna still have fun, they're still gonna bring the joy. And even though I'm spirit, I'm a spirit, I can experience that joy with them. So our friends and family can experience, they show up for celebrations, they show up for birthdays, weddings, births. They do show up for the funerals, maybe most times to help people have already transitioned, but to be there in the vibration of the celebration of the transition of somebody. So it's still a celebration of life. And that's what we say, it's a celebration of life. It's a celebration that we had the experience, the life experience with these people. And now they have returned home. I say home. I say spirit, being in spirit is home. This is temporary. This is like getting an apartment for 6 months, right? It's a temporary thing. And then in 6 months, you move to a different apartment. In a few days, in 100 years, we don't know that time frame. We're moving. We're moving from earth back to spirit. And that's how we keep coming back, if we choose to come back into the physical body, having other earth life experiences, Maybe you believe in other galaxies and other planets, and that's cool too. We come for our growth and expansion on a spiritual basis, and we want to have these human emotions as an experience, and having the free will of making choices, and having experiences in relationships, and having experiences with material stuff. That's the physical body. This is what I call getting a PhD in earth life. Like, it's not easy. I've not done it, but I've heard the stories. It's not easy to get a doctorate. You get your PhD. It's not an easy task. It might be if you're a genius. I don't know. But for me, I probably have to study a lot, to spend many, many, many hours in the book. So in my head, for me, it would be maybe not a struggle, but it might be a little trying to get a PhD. That's the way I see life. Like, our spirit is getting a PhD in earth life. And once we feel our spirit, and whatever our spiritual contract is for however long we're here, we'll transition back. And we choose to come back over and over and over again. That works for me. That's the way I see it. That's what I embrace. And it feels good to me to have that belief system. And I just read a book about children in past lives, and hearing the stories of children. And this book was written back in the early 90s. And so I really, really am intrigued with that information. But I just really want to help you be aware that the holidays bring up the emotions, the birthdays, the anniversaries, the weddings, like all of those are going to trigger emotions because that person isn't here in the physical form, but no, they are with you in spirit, and they are in celebration with you, and they want to celebrate with you, and they want you to still be joyful and still embrace life and life experiences and keep going. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's the easiest thing to do, by no means. But just giving you that awareness. And the more you raise your vibration in a joyful state, the easier it is to connect. So I'll tell you a story about my grandmother. My grandmother was diagnosed with cancer, and it was in her liver, kidneys, and I forget the third one. Anyway, she only gave her a couple months. So I told her, I said, Grant, because I was already living this information that I have is a few years ago. I was already living with this belief system that we're spirit and body, and she's going to go home. And my grandfather had already transitioned with some other family and friends, and I knew she was going to go be with them. And then the way I see it is, she is more accessible to me in spirit than she was in physical form. I could have picked up the phone and called her, but the distance between us, she would have to come to me or I have to go to her. And so I feel that when people transition, like, I put them on my universal team. So my universal team consists of deceased loved ones, ancestors, spirit guides, master guides, master healers, the angelic realm, and source. And so all of that, I just say my universal team. And so she's on my universal team, and I'm like, sweet, one more team member, and I have access to her always. And so each person that I know of, that I have personally known, I'm like, oh, super, another one on my spiritual team. And please know, I don't negate that the family and friends here on earth are going through their grieving process and the loss. I get that, and I understand that. the first person who transitioned that was close to me was my great grandmother. And my difficulty, so the belief at that time, I was in my early 20s, was that when you go to a funeral, you have to wear black. That was my belief system. And my great grandmother passed. And so I went in my closet and I was standing there. And even though I had a lot of black clothes, because I was still kind of super depressed at the time, so black, white, or gray was my wardrobe. I did have some other colorful things in there that I wore very seldom. It was black, white, or gray. That was my wardrobe. So I went and I stood in my closet, small walk-in closet, and I'm standing there, I'm looking at my clothes, and I could not bring myself to pick out anything black to wear to her funeral, because that didn't represent her. She was loving and caring, and she was like 5 foot, I think, but she was spunky. You couldn't get nothing past her. She was just great. And I was like, black, because to me, black, that was my depressed clothes. And I was like, I'm not depressed. And I know that she's still with me, and that by me wearing black does not feel good. Like didn't feel like I was representing her. I had to call my mom. I called my mom. I'm like, do I have to wear black to her funeral, to grandma's funeral? And she's like, no. I needed permission for somebody to tell me I did not have to wear black. So I got this creamy colored dress, had some lace on it, and then little tiny roses all over it. And that's what I wore. And I felt so much better. When my mom said, no, you don't have to wear black, I was like, oh, thank you, because I really, really struggled with that. And it's interesting how our beliefs, what we're programmed to believe, really plays a part in our life, just in general. So anyway, back to my grandmother. So I was my great grandmother when she passed. I didn't want to wear black. And so my grandmother, when she transitioned, or before she transitioned, I said, listen, Gram, I want you to let me know you're okay when you go be with Grandpa. And there's one thing you can do for me, and this is how you're going to tell me you're okay. I have a picture of you and Grandpa in my hallway hanging on the wall, and I want you to take that off the wall. And of course, she kind of looks at me and is like, okay. So I knew that this would be okay, and it was okay to ask her of this. And because once you transition, so whatever beliefs you have as far as in the physical form, when you transition, like all of that's gone. All those, that heaviness is gone, and those belief systems, and I knew that at some point that picture would somehow come off the wall. Now, in my human mind, what I was thinking was it would fall, like it would just fall off the wall. And it was when they were setting up for her celebration of life that my mom calls and she says, hey, we're gathering pictures for Grammy's celebration, and there's a picture in your hallway of Grammy and Grandpa. Could I borrow that? Honestly, I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, yeah, sure. Oh, yeah, no worries. I'll get it back though, right? Yeah, because it's the one picture I have right now. And so she's like, yeah, I just need to borrow it for this get together. And I was like, okay. It wasn't until, so she came, she got the picture, she left. It was like 2 weeks later. It was not an immediate thought, because again, my thought was the picture would fall off the wall or something like that. It wasn't until like 2 weeks later, I sat there and I went, oh my gosh, you took the picture off the wall. So whether that is exciting to you or not, or whether you believe in that or not, it doesn't matter. I know that when it hit me, I was so excited and so elated. I was like, she had my mom take the picture off the wall. And I'm thankful for that, because had it fallen, it may have broke the glass, right? And so I was thankful that my mom took it off the wall. But to think that the picture, and that is the only time that picture, since I put it up, that is the only time that picture has come off the wall. Hasn't. Now that I say this, I'm gonna have to be aware. So maybe me talking about it and talking to her, it'll come off. But and it's been many years that that picture has been hanging on the wall. My mom borrowed it. We put it back. It's still on the wall. Like, I might have, you know, had to clean it or something, but to actually take it off the wall in any other form hasn't come off. So, anyways, things like that we receive these messages, and as soon as I recognized, I was like, oh my gosh, she took the picture off the wall. She's good. She's great. I already felt like she was. That wasn't a doubt in my mind, but that was a confirmation for me. Like, she took the picture off the wall through my mom. Why? Of all the pictures that my grandmother has a ton of pictures. Why, of all the pictures, did my mom ask me for that one picture off my wall? Okay. Just saying. It works for me. So if it works for you, great. If not, but really, like, when people start opening up about their stories like that, and sharing their stories, then other people can recognize they're not crazy. Just like I was saying earlier, that when I started reading the books from Sylvia Browne and stuff, like, I recognized I wasn't crazy. This is also something that helps, that when we share our stories like this, we recognize, like, oh, these things do happen. They do happen if we're present enough in our life to recognize it, right? If I would have been present enough with my mom taking that picture, I would have recognized it right then. At that time in my life, I was crazy in my head. I was busy. I was thinking about the past. I was beating myself up. I was down on myself. I was depressed. And 2 weeks later is when I recognized the picture came off the wall. That's when I made the observation, like, oh my gosh, she's good. My Gram's good. But being present in the moment and having a higher vibration than that, because grief is like down there with like a depression type of energy. I'm not saying you're depressed, but it's in that energy vibration, the energetic vibration of the emotion, that makes us very low on the vibrational scale. And we want to raise our energy up more closer to the vibration of joy. And because remember, when they're in spirit, they are love and joy. That is their vibration. Vibration of love and joy is very high, very high. And we want to raise our vibration up so that we can have that connection. And whether, I know maybe you've had people transition, and maybe you're just tired of hearing it, that they're always with us. Spirit is always with all that has ever been, all that will ever be, is always present. If you really wanted to do the type of work like of Albert Einstein, you spiritually have access to that information. You have access to him, to his spirit, to that information, if that's what you need or want. But you have to be present to receive the download, to receive the information to come in. I've done that a lot this year, where not necessarily with Albert Einstein, it's a little too high thinking for me. But my creativity this year, I've had a lot of creativity happening as far as technology. I'm not a like super savvy person when it comes to technology, but what I found out is I like to do puzzles. When I was growing up, my grandmother always had puzzles, and so putting a puzzle together during this year, taking my business online and learning a lot more about technology, getting apps to talk to each other, setting up different apps and switching apps from one thing to the next. Like that's like back end, back office information, and there's a lot to it. And I would sit and I would say, not necessarily out loud, sometimes out loud, because I'm typically home by myself, that I would just open up and ask, right? Ask my angels, ask spirit to help guide me through this. Help me with the solution for this. Help me solve this puzzle. How do I get these two apps to talk to each other? How do I get the right information in the right areas in the back office of this program? How, right? And allow that information to come. As similar to, have you ever been stuck in something that you're working on and you just can't figure it out? You get up and walk away. You break that focus, because you're focused with blinders on. You can't see anything else. So you walk away, you take a breath, go to the bathroom, get some fresh air, get your cup of coffee, get some water, whatever it is. And then you come back and bam, done, got it, easy peasy. It's opening up yourself to say, I need some help here. And I don't know the answers, but help me with the solution. I'm figuring this out. I've done that a lot this year. And it has really, things have been easier that way. And I am not beating my head on the wall trying to figure things out. Because I ask, well, where's that information coming from? If I, in my head, don't think like me, Amie, can actually figure this out, where's that information coming from? What is guiding me to say, go to YouTube and look at this, key in this information in the search engine so this pops up? Well, if you push this button, then this would happen. Or call this person because they could help you, right? It's not like a forefront in my head to do those things. I sit, I breathe, and I ask. And then the guidance comes. The guidance comes. Now that guidance, again, is from my universal team. It's encompassing all spirit. So there's technology gurus who have transitioned. Maybe that's the information I'm downloading, you know. So, or thinking about us needing a solution for something, and somebody calls me and says, hey, I was just thinking about you. I thought I'd give you a call. I'm like, seriously? You're the one person that could help me with this thing I'm going through right now. How do I do this? How is that happening? That telepathic communication, that spiritual connection, that amazing world of information. It's just like I'm working on Wi-Fi right now. I can't see the connection of the Wi-Fi, but I know it's there. I know it's working. Or your cell phone. You pick up your cell phone and you call somebody. There's no physical connection. But you know when you call somebody or text them, like typically, you get an answer, right? Or you're using the internet. You can't see the actual connection from the satellite or the towers or the companies that are providing this service. You can't see that, but you know it's there. You just trust. You trust that when you turn on your computer or you go on the internet with your phone or you make that phone call, you trust that it's going to work. Trust, faith. These are two words that are used strongly with connecting with spirit, is trust and faith. Trust that spiritual connection is there. The energy, the energetic vibration of the information and knowledge of the universe is available to you. Trust that you have the ability to connect with your loved ones who have transitioned. trust. And the faith is, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. I never had one doubt, not one doubt that that picture would come off the wall. Not one. Didn't know the time frame. Didn't matter. I knew that picture would come off that wall. Trust and faith. I trusted that she, in her way, would get that picture off the wall. And faith, believe that it's going to happen. Believe that your friends and family who have transitioned into spirit are with you. Light a candle, say a prayer, sit in meditation, think of those happy memories. Celebrations. All celebrations, they're there. They're celebrating. So remember that it's not been so much lately, but people taking pictures and there's orbs. It was really common when we were still using film to take pictures. It still happens on our cell phones with our cell phone cameras, but you don't hear of it as often. But orbs, these little round, but they look like somebody blew bubbles, soap bubbles, when you took the picture, because all these little round things were everywhere. Or maybe a big one, just like bam, here's a big old orb right here. Those are that is the belief that those are our family and friends in spirit, or spirit beings there to be in celebration. My husband and I had, when we got married in 2008, his sister had already transitioned into spirit, and we had a picture taken. Somebody took a picture while we were saying our vows, and above him was this big orb. And it was all of us, just me, that were like, that's your sister. His sister's name was Amie as well. Like, that's your sister Amie being there with you. And other pictures that were taken, there were orbs. So be mindful of that when you take pictures, especially at celebrations, if you see those little circles in there, or like a smear of white, that those are probably your friends and family being there with you to celebrate. They love to celebrate. They love to have fun and be joyful and laugh. And so do your best. If you are grieving, please know, again, I'm not negating being in grief. I'm not negating that one bit. It's sad that people leave us, and our hearts is heavy, and it's just a shock or whatever you might be going through. However, do your best as soon as you can to lift your spirits, to be in a joyful state, to continue with your life in a space of fun, and I just keep saying joy and fun and happiness and exhilaration and excitement, because when you're doing that, they're still with you. The other thing is, children, little tykes, and animals, especially dogs, will sense when spirit is around. So if you've ever had like a child having a conversation, nobody else is in the room, even you're in the other room and you're hearing them talk, and you're just like, who are they talking to? Or your dog standing there barking at an empty corner. They're standing there barking at nothing, but there's something there. Listen to your children or listen to your grandchildren, because they are very open to spirit and are very close to that connection, because they're still very innocent. As adults, we get very clouded in our spiritual self, and our connection is like having a weak Wi-Fi. Our connection gets weak, and we have to work back into getting that connection. So I just can't express enough how important it is that my heart goes out to you, especially during this year, if you have had any family or friends who have transitioned. But encourage you, I encourage you to get your spirits up as quickly as you can to have the joyful memories. Be in connection with those joyful memories as often as you can. Laugh as much as you can. Guilt usually comes up, and it's usually very heavy in the sense of it's not right for me to laugh when this person has died. That's not right. Well, that's a belief that maybe you want to work on. Spirit, pure love, pure joy. They want us to be here on earth, have fun, be joyful, play, and they will include themselves in that. So again, my heart goes out to you if you have had difficulty this year with that, with losing, with the loss of a family or friend. And I honor the space that you're in with whatever process that is for you. But I can just encourage you, please, encourage you as much as I can to be lighthearted, be joyful, have fun. And remember, listen to the little ones because they may say some things, have conversations with somebody that's not there, and that would be a connection for you as well. So just be mindful of that. So with that, I wish you all the best, and I want to thank you. I went a little long on this one because I wanted to give as much information value as I could as far as having people transition back into spirit. And I'd really like to know if you do have stories, do you have experiences that you've had in the past that are that you can now recognize, like, oh yeah, this happened and I didn't know what it was or why it happened, or yeah, I had connection with my mom or dad or somebody who transitioned. I'd love to hear those because I think it's important that we share that more and more to help people recognize that it's real and we're not cray. I'm thankful for that, to recognize I'm not crazy. And there are other people, there's many people on this planet who have had experiences too. Sometimes they don't, we didn't talk about it because nobody in my family knew about it. I was kind of the catapult on that belief about spirit and be able to have that connection with spirit and what telepathy was and us being energetic beings. Like I was the catapult of that in our family because I was open enough to get that information and knowledge. And now I teach it, I read about it, I love it. And those are typically the types of books I read now. So, and it brings me a lot of joy to have that information and to be able to share it. So again, put your stuff in the comments. Let us hear your stories. Let us hear what, you know, share with us what you've experienced with your loved ones that have transitioned, or other stories is good too. And that's in that realm. So with that, thank you so much for being here again. Hold Beverly in your prayers, and when she returns, and we're gonna give her that space to be ready. In the meantime, I'll be here for you, and you know, maybe you know somebody who would embrace this video or this podcast too, that they need to hear it as well. So I ask that, you know, provide the information to those that it would be beneficial for. So with that, thank you so much for being here. Tea time with Amie and Bev, and I'll see you next week. So take care and have a great week.